Try to relax, forego the stress. Something ain't popping and you look a mess. Here's a suggestion, I hope it works for you. You better chill.
Ooh. You are listening to the Women in Jazz series featuring local jazz diva, moi, Khadija Renee. And welcome to episode 3, where we showcase women in jazz who have not necessarily gotten their proper due for their contributions to the genre. This week, we're going to be featuring a hometown jazz heroine who was born and raised right here in Philadelphia. Yes, in North Philadelphia. She was a trailblazer. She was the first nationally known female jazz organist. As a matter of fact, they called her the Queen of the Jazz Organ. Yes, we're speaking about none other than the late Shirley Scott. Yes, and we have the good fortune to feature a live interview with one of her living descendants. Yes, her baby daughter, Nicole Turrentine, the daughter of the marriage that occurred between the late great Shirley Scott and the phenomenal jazz saxophonist, Mr. Sugarman himself, Stanley Turrentine. So stay tuned. This presentation will air on Comcast channels 29 and 30, as well as Verizon channel 966. And you know what? I heard that we're streaming online. Yes. Why don't you visit our website, phillycam.org/watch. And I think I heard that we're on 2 other outlets. Apple TV called Roku, ROKU, as well as Apple TV. Yes, Apple TV and Roku. I haven't checked those 2 outlets out yet, but you do, and let me know if you can see the program. Okay? So, I always ask the question when I start off my series by saying and asking you, what do you think of when you hear the word jazz? Do you envision a group of men coming together and playing either in a trio, a quartet, or a big band format, and playing a composition or a standard quite melodically, starting off together and working themselves up to a fervent pitch, and then veering off into solos where each musician gets to express themselves musically on their instruments for a time, trading off beats and notes with one another, and then they bring it back down to a composed vignette of musical tones and taking the song out. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens in a jazz unit as we visualize it across the American scene. However, this show we will be featuring the elephants in the room. Yes, the women who were playing right along with those men and also were behind the scenes arranging tunes, composing tunes, playing the instruments as well as leading the band. Yes, women like Shirley Scott, Trudy Pitts, Sherry Maricold, Marion McPartland, Melba Liston, Vi Reed, to name just a few. So, when women are thought of in the genre of jazz, normally what we see are women, beautiful women on microphones, singing wonderful jazz tunes. You know their names, Ella Fitzgerald, Sassy Sarah Vaughan, my favorite, Billie Holiday, Dinah Washington, Nancy Wilson, God rest her soul. Yeah, these are some of the women in jazz that everybody thinks of when they think of the jazz genre. However, that's not what we're here about in the Women of Jazz series. We're here about the women who pioneered and led bands, composed the music, arranged the music, but yet didn't get their props. So today, we're going to have you learn more about one of the local Philadelphia jazz herons who experienced discrimination and sexism in the fabric of their lives when they tried to play their music. But as the divine feminine spirit that we hold as women, they prevailed. They skyrocketed to fame despite all the setbacks and holdbacks and discrimination that they suffered. And some of them even achieved notoriety. However, many remained obscure. But if they were here to tell you, if you ask them a question, how did they make out in the music? They'll say they had a ball. So, let's talk about our featured artist today, the late, great queen of the jazz organ, Miss Shirley Scott. Okay, guys, I got to read from her bio, and I need my bifocals to do that. Here we are. Here we go. So, Shirley Scott was an admirer of the seminal leader of the jazz organ, Mr. Jimmy Smith. Yes, Miss Shirley Scott has been one of the organ's most appealing representatives since the late 50s. Miss Scott was a very melodic and accessible player, and she started out in high school, right at Girls High School in Philadelphia, playing the trumpet. She played the trumpet before she took up the Hammond B3 and before she achieved national recognition in the late 50s. Her recording career actually started in the late 50s. It was 1958, as a matter of fact. She started out as a side woman in a quartet called John Newman, the John Newman Quartet. And they did an album called Soft Swinging Jazz. I listened to that cut. It was very, very nice. But she was still a side woman at that time. Then she made history in 1958 on a prominent jazz label at the time called Prestige, with dates with the phenomenal saxophone player, Mr. Eddie Lockjaw Davis. And they had a top 40 hit. It was very popular. It was called In the Kitchen. So let's go to the kitchen with Shirley Scott and Eddie Lockjaw Davis. Take a listen. "1958 proved to be a great year for Miss Shirley, and she stepped out as a band leader and recorded several of her own LPs as a band leader, namely Great Scott and an album called Scotty, still with the Prestige label. So why don't we check out a few of those tunes from her debut albums as a band leader? This next tune coming up is called Great Scott. It's a Brazilian tune, and it's called Brazil, off of the album Great Scott. Take a listen. Mm, yeah, that was a swinging, bumping one right there. Yeah, I love that organ jazz back in the day. Reminds me of some barbecue chicken. Yeah. Mm-mm. Okay, let's hear one more. There was another tune that she composed and put on her album called Mr. Wonderful. Yeah, I know she probably thought that husband of hers, that great saxophone player, Mr. Stanley Turrentine, was Mr. Wonderful. It wouldn't surprise me if it was all about him. All right, we'll be right back after this tune. The Scott Turrentine Union lasted until the early 70s, and their musical collaboration in the 60s were among the finest in the field. The Union produced three girls: Lisa, Pamela, and Nicole Turrentine. Shirley had two sons from a prior relationship: Thomas Duck Scott, as he's very well known, Ball, Thomas Duck Scott Ball, and Everett. We are fortunate today to have the youngest of the Turrentine girls with us today for this tribute episode to the queen of the jazz organ, Shirley Scott. Philly Can fans, help me in welcoming Miss Nicole Turrentine. Hi,
Hello.
Nicole.
Hello. How are you?
I'm delighted to see you today. Thanks so much for joining us. Even though we're
Absolutely.
remote, we're still
Yeah.
going to move forward and hear the story, the fabulous story of your famous parents. All right. So welcome to the Women in Jazz series, Philadelphia. Thanks for making yourself available, Nicole.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
This is a very special day actually for you, April 4th being your father's birthday.
Yes. Yes. Actually, April 5th is his
Oh,
birthday.
April
I'm sorry.
5th.
Yeah.
Mhm.
April 5th.
Okay.
Daddy was an
Wow.
Aries.
And how old would he have been had he been with us today?
Daddy would have been 87.
Wow.
87.
87. Well, we're sending warm, heavily happy birthday wishes to the soulful, jazzy Mr. Stanley Turrentine, one of the greatest saxophone players that ever touched down on the earth.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So today we take the time out to honor your phenomenal mother, Miss Shirley Scott, the queen of
Yes.
jazz organs. And so we wanted to ask you some questions about what it was like for you to be the daughter of these two famous parents, especially um, Miss Shirley Scott, since this episode is all about her. I understand they They called her Scotty for short.
Yes, they did. They did. I don't know where. I guess because of her last name
Hmm.
and her the respect that she demanded in her field, they called her
Yeah,
Scotty.
yeah. Well, she wasn't just an organist. She was a band leader, a
Yes.
composer, and a classical pianist. Right? Did she have classical training on the piano?
No, she didn't have class. She wasn't a classical pianist. She was trained. She learned initially from her brother TL how to play the
Ah,
piano because TL was a musician in the army, and when he would come
oh,
home to practice, he would wanted someone to play chords for him. So he enlisted my mom to do that with him.
oh. So she's like homegrown pianist, taught by the
Yes,
family.
yes,
Excellent. Well, those skills on the piano certainly did transfer over to the jazz organ because she had
absolutely.
her definitely her own style, and everybody knew when you listened to Shirley Scott, you knew you were listening to Shirley Scott.
Yeah.
So I understand that Nicole, your family home is in North Philadelphia.
Yes,
Um,
my family's from North Philadelphia.
can you describe for us what it was like growing up in a musical family with such great musical superstars as Shirley Scott and Mr. Stanley Turrentine? What do you remember about that?
Well, for one, I didn't know that it was something special. I thought everybody's family did that. Um, I thought everybody's family went to the recording studio, had musicians and jam sessions at the house. I didn't think that was anything abnormal. I thought everybody did it. It was a surprise to me when I found out that it wasn't. And I was like, really? Y'all don't do this? You don't really? Oh, okay. You don't have live musicians in your living room? No?
No, we
Oh,
didn't.
all right. Okay, well, we did.
No. Right in the living room, huh?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
how did your parents get along? I mean, we all wonder like, what's it like to have two superstars in the same house? How did they get along?
When they were home, it was mom and dad, husband and wife. It wasn't about the music. It was about the family. So they were
Mm,
excellent parents. Even when they, split up, they were excellent parents. They wanted to make sure that
wow.
we were okay, regardless of what they went through. The main thing was the children.
It was five of you guys, right?
Yes, five. Everybody said I
Wow.
was spoiled. And my dad said,
Uh-oh.
no, he said, no, we're tired. After, yeah,
Tired.
yeah,
After dealing with the five of you, I
yes.
guess.
So the last one, me being the youngest, he said we were tired.
Can you share with the Philly Cam listeners and audience about what it was like going on the road with your parents and Miss Shirley Scott and Stanley Turrentine? What was that like?
It was, like I said, that was the normal for us. We would go on the road, we would pack our bags. Actually, if we didn't go with them, we had fits. Like, why can't we go? We don't want you to leave. I want to go too, because to us that was fun, going and staying in a hotel and ordering room services and takeout and stuff. That was a treat. Of course, my parents kind of got tired of lugging all of us around. But when they
Hmm.
could, they would bring us together, bring us with them. And it was enjoyable. Not all the times that we would be able to go and watch them perform. Like maybe we would have an aunt or an older cousin looking after us. But as far as spending time on the road and traveling, we enjoyed it. I don't know if they like driving from city to city with five kids, a baby, and bottles and diapers and stuff, but we liked it.
I'm sure. You said that your father had you guys traveling around in a big old Cadillac.
Yes, sometimes we would drive in the Cadillac. That was my dad's car. So we had a Cadillac, and my car seat was the armrest. The seat belt was his arm, and everybody else got to sit in the back seat. They had the back seat. I guess that's one of the reasons why they said I was spoiled because I got to see everything.
Uh-huh. Baby girl Turntine sitting up on the front seat. This was
Hmm.
before the big issue of seatbelts.
Way
and,
before that, we didn't have to wear helmets to ride bikes. I don't know how we
Mhm.
survived, but some kind of way we did.
Well, this was back in the 60s, right?
Yeah, late 60s, early 70s.
You mentioned that your whole family's from Philadelphia. So,
Hmm.
where did your mother get her musical education?
Mom actually got her musical education in the Philadelphia Schools District. Mommy
Mm-hmm.
graduated from Girls High early.
You know, girls, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and through my uncle also teaching her the basics on the piano. But she took music lessons at Girls High. Excuse me. And
Playing the trumpet, right?
the trumpet.
She
Yes,
played.
mom played the trumpet.
Wow,
Yes, she did.
a woman on the trumpet,
Hmm. And my
fantastic.
mom was
And so,
petite. She was a little, well, my mom said she was 5'1". I kind of question that. I think she may have been like 5'11", 4'11", 5 foot. But okay, mom, if you say you're 5'1", I'm taking your word for it. Yeah.
yeah, but her height had nothing to do with her power, her musical power. From my research, I remember that she uh, went out on the road early in her
Mhm.
life.
Yes, she did. Well, mom graduated from high school early. And then right from high school, she started traveling and performing. My grandmother, her mother, would escort her and be her chaperone. But mom started working basically when before she was 20. So mom was on the road at a young age.
Okay. Well, your mother's discography is quite extensive. And when she first went out on the road, she was with the Atlantic Records label. And she was recorded first with David Fathead Newman, one of the famous jazz saxophonists that she played with. So
Hmm.
I'd like to just take a moment and share with our Philly Cam audiences some of Miss Shirley Scott's early recordings. So listen to one of these tunes from her early discography, recorded with the famous Mr. David Fathead Newman, who also played with the great Ray Charles. So we'll be right back after this tune. Okay.
Is that all right?
Wow. Yeah, that music is still classic and it's just never going to die.
Yeah.
Um, just a little bit of history here. Miss Shirley, she wasn't as visible in the following decade after the 60s when the popularity of organ combos decreased and labels were moving and more interested in fusion and pop jazz. Though she did record some albums on the Chess, Cadet, and Strata East labels, she still was able to come back in the following decade and continue to do some more phenomenal jazz compositions. And we're going to take another moment just to hear some recordings from the early 70s decade. So take a listen, everybody, and we'll be right back. So, Nicole,
Yes.
can you tell us what your mother was doing alongside of performing live jazz? She was doing something else, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. Mom was pursuing her academic career. Mom received her first bachelor's degree in music from Cheney University at the age of 53. And then before she passed away, mom had a double master's in music and education from Cheney. She was known on Cheney's campus as the living jazz legend on the campus. She
Wow.
also was the music director for You Bet Your Life with Bill Cosby that was filmed right here in Philly. So mom was busy. Mom was busy.
You stay busy. I couldn't imagine being in a classroom with a living legend. Somebody who's actually doing what you're training to do.
Yes.
So I'm very at all, and I'm sure from what I can recall, you told me that she had a couple of famous students there at
Yes.
Cheney that she loved.
Well, she had a couple of proteges people might have known, heard of. Tim Warfield and Terrell
What?
Stafford. Yes, mom loved
What?
them like they were her sons. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And then I think from my research, I remember you telling me that they went on to record with her.
They did.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. And they would perform with mom all the time. All the time. And mom just enjoyed it with the young generation, so much younger than her. Really knowing and appreciating and loving that art form was wonderful. She just enjoyed it so much.
Yes, you did. To be able to have students who pay attention to a point where they become experts themselves, and then you can go on to record with them. I'm sure that was an experience that she really, really loved and cherished.
Right. But they weren't her students. Mom was their
Oh,
mentor. Yeah. So
oh,
basically mom sort of mentored them. They never had to take classes with mom because what mom taught
wow,
at Cheney, they were advanced from that stage in the teaching series. So
wow.
yeah, she was their mentor.
I'm happy because they both are doing phenomenally well in the jazz world, and they are definitely lions who received the baton in the Philadelphia jazz community and moved forward throughout the rest of the world, sharing their gifts. And matter of fact, I think Terrell is still a professor at Temple University.
I believe he is. I
Mm-hmm.
believe he is.
She, she was so proud.
Yes,
Oh,
definitely.
so, can you share with the Philly Cam audience like some specific memories you have about um, your mother's musical prowess um, as a band leader?
Okay. Well, back then it was on her like the 60s and the 70s when my mom was, how can I put it? Was well known during that time when the jazz organ was more popular per se. Mom,
Mm-hmm.
most women stayed home and they were housewives, or if they did work outside of the home, they were a nurse or a secretary or a teacher or something like that. My mom was a boss. She was the headliner. So it was her choice of her picking the musicians, the music, and decided if they would perform it at a certain venue or not. So during that time, Women's Lib, my mom was doing that well before the movement started. So my mom was a
Mm-hmm.
boss. She was.
With the hot sauce for sure.
Yes.
She had a
Yes.
bossy name, Scotty,
Hmm.
and you were telling me that she was the one that picked out her sidemen, and they all had a respect for her.
Absolutely. You're not going to hear of, my mother demanded a certain respect when she walked in a room. My mother didn't have to say a word, but you knew she was somebody without even speaking, just by her aura, her presence, the way she carried herself. It was just spectacular. Very rare did you hear my mother raise her voice. And usually,
Mm.
if she was raising her voice, she was laughing because she had a great sense of humor. One of the smartest women I could ever know. She was just great. That was my best friend. I miss her.
I'm sure you do. Sure you do.
Mhm.
I remember getting a chance to hear her down at one of Philadelphia's famous clubs of that time, down in the Northern Liberty section of the city.
Ortlieb's?
Ortiz.
Yeah,
Yep. The old beer factory that was transformed into a jazz club and restaurant. And I
yeah.
saw her there with her favorite drummer. What was his
Mickey?
name?
Mickey Roker?
Mr. Mr. Mickey Roker. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. They tore that stage up together.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
another great Philadelphia musician that we lost
Um,
was on some time with her, played with her,
Bootsy
um,
Barnes?
with Steve Barnes.
Yes. Yes.
Just lost him to that dreaded germ that's going around.
Yeah.
So the Philadelphia jazz scene was very lively, and Miss Scott was one of the female leaders of the Philadelphia jazz scene in the 60s and in the 70s and throughout the decades until she dearly departed us.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that we take the time out to honor, this great Philadelphia woman, an icon, and remember her, dearly and giving her the props that she deserves. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about some of your mother's greatest performances that you can remember? What do you think are some of her greatest accomplishments?
Okay. Me maybe being a little biased. I love to hear mommy and daddy perform together because they were in sync. It was like they knew what each other were going to do before they do it. They did it. It was just a different type of vibe than with I've seen either one of them play with. Um, Harold Vick, my mother played with Harold Vick. My mother played with John Coltrane. Um, okay,
She
John
did. She played with
Coltrane.
Tom Coltrane too. I didn't know that.
Yes, they did. They played together. Um, they played with there was so many. Um, Let me see, cousin Mary.
Yeah,
I'm
cousin
trying.
Mary John
It's
Coltrane.
Yeah, John Coltrane's cousin, cousin Mary. They were best. They were very close friends.
Wow.
Um, Gloria Coleman, who's another organist from New York. They were very close friends with my mother too.
Okay, I have to
Um,
look her up.
yes. Um, but my mom was just a special type of woman. She was.
Yeah,
Like I said,
really. Truly.
she was gifted and talented with her God-given talent, and she would share it and take time out with people and just miss her. They don't
I'm
make
sure
them
you
like
do.
that no more.
I can't really think of too many modern day jazz organists who, just fall off the tip of my tongue. I know that there are some, especially of the Japanese ethnicity. Yes, some
Mhm.
Japanese organists out there today, but I really can't think of any African American females that are leading on the jazz organ right now since the passing of your dear mother and our illustrious Dr. Trudy Pitts. So that's
Mhm.
what this is. The Women in Jazz series focus on leading female jazz organists, and you can't do that without mentioning the great Miss Shirley Scott. Out of the
Mhm.
five children that she had, I understand all of you really were musically inclined. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, we didn't really have a choice. My dad expected for us to play some type of musical instrument. So
Okay.
he picked out what we played, basically.
Okay.
Me, I wanted to follow in my big brother and play the drums. No, I was told I would play the violin. I guess he saw
Oh,
something in each one of us that so he decided, what instruments we would play. I
okay.
got the violin, you know.
And you said your big brother. Which
Yeah,
brother was
my
that?
duck, Tom. I wanted to follow him and play the drums. No, I wasn't
Yeah.
allowed to.
I'm sorry that you got treated like that. That
I
was quite
know.
discriminatory.
I know. We could have been doing gigs together.
I hear you. Speaking of gigs together, I played with your brother, many times. He's my one of my favorite drummers in Philadelphia. His style is so smooth and measured. You never have to worry about him not having the beat and driving the rest of the members in the trio. Maybe one day I'll share a couple. He's on my CD, my latest CD. I got a chance to perform in the studio with your brother. So
Yeah.
that's one of my treasured memories.
Oh,
You know.
wonderful. He's a
Uh,
little hard
but
headed, but I love him.
yeah, we love it. We all love
Yeah.
Dot. That's for sure. So your mother had some great performances during her career.
Yes.
Which ones do you remember?
I remember like my mom performed down at Penn's Landing. It was a Pico festival
Hmm.
and she was performing and the wind was blowing. It was by the water and just looking at her strength in her performance. Like she wasn't a timid, like dainty piano player. When my mom played, she played. Have no mistake, but it was just the combination, excuse me,
Hmm.
of the element and the location and the wind blowing in her hair. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful.
Shirley and her trios, they could really rock the house with that jazz. It had a phenomenal downbeat that really got you clicking your fingers, tapping your toes, and rocking back and forth because it was kind of like jazzy rock music, rock star music. It was funky and it moved you, and you were like you wanted to get up and dance, and you felt the spirit of the rhythm in Shirley Scott's music because she knew how to funk up that organ like
Mhm.
nobody else could. You know.
Yes.
So what else do you remember about her performances?
I remember how she would hop. Like when she was playing the organ, it was a certain thing that she would do. It was like she was hopping when she was playing. I guess
Ah,
it was getting good to her, so she would have to jump in there. But it was a certain way she would hop.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was
soulful,
just wonderful. Yeah,
grits, bacon, and eggs kind of jazz.
that's right.
Big, funky, moving, rhythmic jazz that
Hmm.
she and her sidemen kicked off, and especially when she played with your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad had one of the smoothest sounds. Mr. Salt, his greatest performance album, I think, was the Salt Song.
So
But
yes. Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
but I love the music that he and your mother made. So,
Hmm.
from what I remember from the research, she played at the Kennedy Center.
She was honored there. Unfortunately,
Uh-huh.
she was sick, so I had to go and on her behalf and accept the award. But they honored her at the Kennedy Center. Yes.
Yeah, and she was world renowned too,
Yes.
right? Because she traveled to Italy.
Yes, she did. She traveled, well, early in her career, she traveled a lot, but later
Hmm.
on, she wouldn't travel as much. She's gone to Africa, Italy, so she's all through Europe. She has
Hmm.
traveled. She had traveled.
Wow.
Mhm.
Right. And she spent some time in Italy,
She did.
from what
The
I.
last time she was there in Italy was right before she was sick, and she loved it there. She loved the people there. They loved her. So it was a
Yeah.
beautiful experience.
She was traveling back and forth intercontinentally. While she was here in the States, she got a gig as a musical director, didn't she?
Yes, with Bill Cosby show, You Bet Your Life.
You
So
bet
she
your
was the
life. I remember. I wonder how many of our guests remember that show, Bill Cosby, Bet Your Life, coming on
right.
TV every week. Little
Yeah,
did they know that there was a woman in charge of the musical direction of that program. Your mom.
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So her abilities took her some special places in the world.
Yes, they did.
Mhm.
She was
Philadelphia.
blessed, and
Yes,
I was blessed to have her.
I know you were. I'm sure you missed your dear mother.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that your mother got sick. She experienced like a health tragedy in her life later in her life.
Yes, well, my mom suffered complications from the drug Fen-Phen, the weight loss drug,
Wow.
and subsequently that took her life.
Mm,
So there was a lawsuit, and the first one that was presented in Pennsylvania was my mother's case, and she
mm.
was, granted a settlement. But I would prefer
Sure,
my mom. Forget the settlement. Give me my mom.
that's sure, sure. I'm sorry for your loss. It happened that way, but she always will be with us because of her phenomenal music. And
Yeah.
I listen to our local jazz radio station here in Philadelphia like every day,
Hmm.
and they do play her music still today.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Nicole, if you could choose a few sentences to describe your mom's persona, what would you say she was like? Because we don't know the real Shirley Scott. We just know what we see on TV, what we hear on the radio. But
Hmm.
what would you say about her personality if you describe it in a few words?
My mom was a quiet little giant.
I like that.
Yes, she was a quiet little giant. Although she was petite and tiny, and yes, she was quiet, but you knew that when you had to deal with her, you dealt with somebody special. Yes.
Okay, so she had to be special to be out on the road. I think we said she went on the road right out of high school, right?
Yes, she did.
And to be a band leader at that age,
Young. Yes. Although my mother,
yeah.
my grandmother, her mother would chaperone her wherever she went. Um, yeah,
Wow. And making money at that age,
at
she
that
had to be
age, she
exceptionally talented.
yes, she had a career where she could take care of herself and her family at that young age, and that's what she
Wow.
did.
Okay. Well, Shirley Scott was born in Philadelphia. Where
Mom
was
was
your mother?
born in 1934.
Oh, the 30s.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So she was like well in her um was she in her 60s when she passed away or how old was
Yes,
she?
in her 60s. She was young to have passed away. Mom was 60, I believe 63 when she passed.
I rest her
63.
soul.
Yeah.
So what would you say your mom's message for the world? What would she say to everybody if she was still here to talk and transfer her energy and her feelings about life? What would she say to people, you think?
That you can achieve anything you want to. Don't let your age, gender, or whatever stop you from doing whatever you want to do. If you want to do it, pursue it, hone your craft, practice your craft, and keep on moving. It might not lead you down the road that you expect. It might lead you to something even better. But try. Always try. Don't ever give up.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. I do believe she would say that.
Hmm.
They say that her music was influenced by gospel and blues. Would you agree with that statement that she spent some time playing the Hammond B3 organ in church?
Not really. My mom didn't really attend church per se.
Mm-hmm.
As far as blues, my mom liked all music. So I'm not going to say that she was influenced by gospel, although she did write a gospel song. Um, she was raised in a Baptist home, but as far as going to church and playing the music, that's not where she got. her background in.
Okay, so she kind of like came from the gritty realizations of being in the streets of Philadelphia,
No,
and
she came
just
from my Uncle Tommy teaching her jazz because um she needed to have he needed someone to play chords for him. So my uncle would teach her how to do it. She wanted to learn, but she learned from my uncle. My uncle was her initial teacher, Uncle
did,
T.L.
did she play with him? Did she go out and play with him on a circuit, on the jazz circuit? She played with him at all? Did he allow? Was she able to go in the clubs or anything like
Well,
that?
he played in the army, so she wasn't able to do that. He was in the service, so she wasn't. But he would. They would play at home, at my grandmother's
Mm-hmm.
home. They would play.
All right. Well, we're going to take some time out and listen to some more music from the fabulous Shirley Scott, the Mrs. Stanley Turrentine, the great female jazz pioneer of the jazz organ, and we'll be back. Yes. Organists regained their popularity in the late 1980s. They saw a little downslide in the 70s because there was different types of musical genres coming in, like disco and R&B was skyrocketing. So jazz kind of took a little skydive for a while in the 70s. But then the jazz organ had a epiphany, I should say, in the 80s, which found Miss Scott recording for a whole new label called Muse. Though known primarily for her organ playing, Scott is also a superb pianist. And in the 1990s, she played piano exclusively on some trio recordings for other labels like Candid. And she embraced the instrument consistently in Philly jazz venues in the early part of that decade. At the end of the 90s, Miss Scott's heart was damaged by the diet drug combination of fen-phen, they called it, leading to her declining health. On March 10th, 2002, she died of heart failure right here at the Philadelphia Presbyterian Church. Hospital, I should say. I'm not even sure that hospital is still in existence, Presbyterian Church, but that's where she saw her final days. Her vast recordings are available for us to enjoy today for decades moving forward. And she will always be remembered as the female pioneer of the jazz organ. And to the great spirit of Shirley Scott, we say namaste. So Philly Kim listeners, please tune in to see this episode every Sunday afternoon. Oh, no, that's radio. Every Sunday afternoon at 1:30 on our radio station WPPM 106.5 FM LP. And also, this program that you're watching right now will be running every Monday evening. I think we come on at 7:30. Yes, 7:30, and we'll be on Comcast channels. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get those channels right. I don't want to get those channels wrong. All right, Comcast channel 66 now, and also on 966. So that's Comcast 66 and 966. And also on Verizon Fios. Yes. Verizon Fios on channels 29 and 30, okay? So tune in and support Women Jazz because we're going to have another important female jazz heron come on for the month of, I think, in June. We hope to feature another great lady of jazz, matter of fact, of the jazz organ too. How many of you heard of Dr. Trudy Pitts? Yes, you don't want to miss that. So tune in as we interview her daughter, Anisha Carney Jacobs, and learn more about the life of another Philadelphia original queen of the jazz organ, Dr. Trudy Pitts. So I will see you all soon. And check us out on Facebook and check me out on my website, www.kikijavene.com. And on Facebook, Khadija Renee. Look me up and catch what I'm up to next, because you never know. All right. Take care. Namaste.
The road of life can be slick and steep. I hope you're looking before you leave. Resist temptation, baby, I'll catch you on.